Hey, what is going on everyone? In this video I've been doing a review of the Samsung Galaxy S5. And in terms of physical design, it's 142 by 72.5 by 8.1 millimeters, and it doesn't look like anything new from Samsung. It looks like the Galaxy S4 and the Note 3 combined into one. And being very honest, it's not the most attractive looking device available on the market right now. At the bottom front of the device, you have a bit of a gap here between the screen and the body edge. That's because they have physical buttons at the bottom due to the new fingerprint scanner which Samsung has included. And while the fingerprint scanner is a nice security feature, it's honestly not that great. Your finger must be swiped perfectly straight and it must go at the correct timing, otherwise it won't read your fingerprint, which happens quite often. Now, while a lot of people complain that Samsung hasn't changed the physical design of their S phones, you have to admit that it's surprisingly light for its size at 145 grams. Not only that, this texture at the back is really soft and makes it easy to grip the device. In fact, it's very comfortable to hold in one hand. A nice addition to the S5 compared to previous Samsung models is that this version is IP67 certified, which means it's dust and water resistant. And it's water resistant up to 1 meter for 30 minutes, which means you can even use the video camera while on vacation on the beach and go underwater. On the bottom of the device we have the first microphone, and to the right of it we have the USB port. It supports USB 2.0 and 3.0, but the annoying thing is this flap. See this over here? Every time you want to recharge or connect your device to the computer, you have to remove that flap to access the USB port and then put it back on when you're done. It's annoying. It's designed so that water or dust isn't leaking because it's dust and water resistant device. However, I wish Samsung had given the option to remove it because not everyone needs a phone in a dust or water resistant environment. It should have been optional to remove it. And whenever a wire is disconnected from the S5, you get this really annoying pop-up reminding you to put the flap back onto the USB port every single time. And on the left side of the device you have the volume rockers for up and down volume, and on the right side you have the power button. On the top you have a 3.5mm headphone jack, the secondary microphone, and an IR blaster. And having an IR blaster basically means there's a remote control built into the S5, which means you can use it with your TV and certain stereo system devices, and it's pretty responsive. Now moving on to the back of the device, we actually have a lot going on here. The primary camera is 16 megapixels, which is capable of recording at 4K and 30 frames per second. You'll have to excuse any background noise because all audio and video that you're seeing right now and hearing is being recorded with the Samsung Galaxy S5, and I have to say that's pretty impressive in good and low lighting conditions. Not only that, 4K video recording and playback of the video is extremely impressive. And it's not the greatest quality compared to say a pocket camera, mirrorless, or DSLR, but for a smartphone it's impressive nonetheless. You have special camera effects available, like selective focus, which basically allows you to focus the foreground and blur the background, as you can see, or you can do the opposite and blur the foreground and make the background in focus, or focus everything. Of course, this looks pretty artificial compared to a DSLR. The built-in camera app has a lot of options available for you to play with. You might not need to download a third-party camera app. In fact, you're not limited to what you see here. You can actually download even more filters and effects from the Samsung store. The Gallery app itself has a fair amount of photo and video editing functions, but if you click the menu button and hit Studio, you'll get even more photo and video editing options. And next to the flash at the rear, you have a heart rate monitor in which you place your index finger on it. And your heart rate results are displayed in the S Health app, which I'm not sure how accurate it is because I never measure my heart rate, but to be honest, it's not that great. Your finger must be placed on the exact proper spot because a lot of the times it actually doesn't work for me because it says my finger's placed incorrectly. What's very unique about this device is that despite it being dust and water resistant, you can still remove the back, which gives you access to the 2800 mAh battery. It's an impressive feat. And Samsung was able to achieve this feat. If you notice when you remove the battery cover on the inside, there's a protective seal outlining a certain area of the phone. That's because it protects the most important parts from dust and water damage. Battery performance on the S5 is pretty impressive. I was able to go from 100% down to 11% in 2 days, 16 hours, and 21 minutes. And of course during that time I had the screen on for 3 hours and 20 minutes, but that also includes watching videos. And you know what that means? It means the speaker is being used and it puts more strain on the battery. Not only that, I was also able to get talk time of 2 hours and 30 minutes, so I'm pretty impressed with the battery performance. Okay, so in this part of the video I'm going to do my usual speaker test. I have the volume completely maxed out. I'm playing a video for my YouTube channel. Actually, it's the review video of the HTC M8, and I will be comparing the Samsung Galaxy S5 to the HTC M8. In another video, you can find a link to that video in the video description. And because the speaker's on the bottom, I'm going to flip the phone over when I play the video, so here we go, max volume. 8. Starting off with the design, except for the screen itself, 90% of the body is covered in aluminum, which HTC prides himself on, which they should because it looks pretty elegant. That's probably the reason why the phone weighs a bit much at 160. Okay, let's see what I can hear from this distance, which is about 30 to 35 feet. And of course, that makes the phone a little large for a 5-inch screen phone. Of course, it makes the phone a little large for 5-inch screen, that's what I said. So the speaker is okay. It's not the greatest, it's just decent at best, let's put it that way. And on the top front of the device, you have the 2 megapixel front-facing camera. And the front camera records in 30 frames per second at 1080p, and I have special options like this where I have picture-in-picture where both cameras are working at the same time. I can even switch it around, and I can move my image around and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. But the problem with the front-facing camera is that you get a lot of noise in the image, even in good lighting conditions. So the front camera is just average for a smartphone, nothing really special. Now let's talk about the gorgeous 5.1-inch Super AMOLED 1080p screen with an approximate PPI of 432. I have to say the screen is absolutely stunning. In terms of brightness, colors, and sharpness of detail, it looks fantastic and is something you must see in person to really appreciate its quality. And packed inside is 2 gigs of RAM. Inside we have a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 Crate 400 2.5 GHz quad-core processor with an Adreno 330 GPU. And what I find strange here is that the Nexus 5, which was released about 7 months ago, performs a little bit better than the S5. And the best way to push the processor and GPU performance is by playing high graphic Android games as I am now. But what I notice is that it's a little bit sluggish compared to the Nexus 5. Nothing that'll ruin your experience of course, but when I play them side by side, I notice that the Nexus 5 is a little bit smoother, which I find a bit odd because the S5 has one of the best processors in the mobile market right now. So it's nothing bad, I just would expect a little bit more from the S5. Even just using the general interface, opening and closing apps like My Magazine, it's a little slow. And even, of course, multitasking is a little bit slower compared to the competition like say the HTC One M8. But again, it's nothing that will ruin your experience, but you can notice a difference if you use the devices side by side, for example. And out of the box, you're getting Android 4.4.2 KitKat, which is the latest version of Android to date, with Samsung's TouchWiz overlay. When it comes to the My Magazine app, not a lot of stuff is displayed for certain topics. It's a little disappointing. Not only that, when you go to My Social Networks, you notice that of all things, Facebook is missing, which is bizarre. You get a couple of battery saving modes, which for example turn the screen gray and black. They lower the performance of the phone, but the trade-off is that you get a lot longer lasting battery, which is always good to have. In terms of connectivity, you have the usual like GPS, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, which supports 802.11 A, B, G, N, and AC. And of course you have NFC chip, but the most unique thing here is that you have Download Booster. And what Download Booster actually does is allow you to use your Wi-Fi and LTE connection at the same time to download files over 30 megabytes in size. The only trade-off is that you can't use it on the Google Play Store or Samsung Store, but it's amazing. And one of the great things about having TouchWiz on your phone is that it comes with a ridiculous amount of Samsung exclusive features. For example, gesture commands, in which I can wave my hand in front of the phone to wake up the screen. Or air waving commands to browse through your gallery, for example. There's also Air View, in which I can hover my finger over, say, a gallery album and get previews for it, and this works in other various apps. The Toolbox Drawer, which allows you to access certain app shortcuts from anywhere within the phone, and the very wicked and cool one-handed mode. Now there's a lot more features packed in this phone, but I can't show them in this video because I'll make this video way too long, so I'll make a separate video in which I show a lot more Samsung features. You can find a link to that video in the video description. But there are some problems with the Samsung software. For example, the Motion Air Gesture Wake Up command was annoying me because my elbow was hovering above it during dinner. Well, I thought I would turn it off in Motions and Gestures, right? Wrong. I actually forgot that you have to turn it off in Accessibility, then go to Dexterity and Interaction, then Air Wake Up. And this is where you turn it off from. It's kind of bizarre that they placed it here and not in their Motions and Gestures. Some of the placement of the software is confusing. Another problem is in the notification drawer, you have these two icons that show up saying S-Finder and Quick Connect, but there's no way to remove them and it's very annoying to see every time. The biggest problem with the software, of course, is the system settings menu, which is the most important part of the phone. It's just a huge, giant, cluttered mess. And of course there are ways of viewing it differently, but regardless of what you choose, it's still a huge mess, and it doesn't seem to be fixed since the Galaxy S4 and the Note 3, which is kind of disappointing. And most importantly, it provides good phone call quality. So I'm going to go ahead and give the S5 an 8 out of a 10. I actually have a second score for it, which sounds bizarre, but just bear with me and understand what that means. So I'm giving it an 8 out of a 10. It's not the most attractive design physically, let's admit it, it's true. But you know what, for its size, it's very comfortable to hold, grip is great, it's surprisingly light, battery's good, you have a couple of battery saving modes, the screen clarity is fantastic, very bright colors, sharp, and you know what, speaking of sharpness, the camera on this thing is fantastic. I praised the Note 3 from last year for having a wicked camera on a smartphone. I gotta say Samsung has done it again. 4K video recording, 1080p recording, picture taking is fantastic. But you know what, in low lighting situations you get a lot of noise in the image, but that's expected. It's still a smartphone at the end of the day, and for a smartphone it does fantastic. It's dust and water resistant. Go ahead, take it on the beach. Sand won't ruin it, water won't ruin it. You know, dive underwater, record some videos underwater, it'll be great. You have a lot of Samsung exclusive features like air, gesture, wave commands, and all that other good stuff. But you know what, for all its good stuff, it has some problems which Samsung just chose to ignore. Small things that could have been fixed and made this phone great. First is the annoying flap here. I wish I could have taken it off because I don't go to the beach that often. I'm not going to take the phone underwater that often. I wish I had the option to take this flap off and put it back on whenever I wanted. The other thing is that the software interface is a little bit slower compared to the competition. And it has one of the most powerful processors in the market right now. I don't know why that is. I don't know what Samsung did. They kind of made the interface a little bit sluggish. But this is like a fraction of a second. I only notice it because I go through a lot of phones. The average consumer will not notice this, so don't worry. But it is a little bit odd though. The other thing is that the system settings menu is a giant cluttered mess. Just like the S4 and the Note 3 from last year, Samsung just hasn't learned. The system's settings menu is so confusing. The air waving command to wake up, like I said, should have been an air gesture menu. It's not. It's in accessibilities and then in, I think, interaction or something like that. It's just too complicated. They shouldn't have done that. But you know what? For all it's bad, it's got more good to weigh out the cons, I guess you can say. It's because there's strong positives to this device. Now you might be wondering why I said it had a second score. You see, I actually found out, and I'm actually one of these people, that in certain areas when you buy the S5, you do not get a USB 3.0 cord out of the box. Samsung just decided to cheap out and just send them a regular USB 2.0 cord. Whereas say in America you'll get a USB 3.0 cord, whereas in Europe you'll get USB 2.0 in certain areas. That's just not right. That's why I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 for people who get a USB 2.0 cord. You can buy them for a few dollars, very dirt cheap, but it's inexcusable on Samsung's part. Overall, a really great device for all around any user pretty much, because it does everything any other cell phone could, plus more. So definitely worth checking out. I hope you found this video useful. Be sure to check out the comparison video to the HTC One M8. It'll be a pretty interesting comparison. And of course, if you found this video useful, be sure to check my Facebook, Google+, Twitter links in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.